Why, hello there, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Bill.
And I'm Curtis.
We are father and son, and together we are
Your Geekdumb
Geekdumb
Prophets.
Prophets. Hey, how's it going, Curtis?
Oh, it's not going too terrible. It's been a while since we've recorded, hasn't it?
It has been a couple weeks. We were going to do it a little bit ago, but life just got busy as usual.
Oh, that's the way things go.
Well, we had a great holiday in there, though. How was your 4th of July?
Oh, it was wonderful. We had a little thing called Denver Fan Expo up here.
What?
Oh, it was so much fun. It was a great time. I got some things to show off here as well as a special item that I got just for you that I'm holding ransom.
Oh, that's right. You have something just for me?
I
For
do.
free?
No, it wasn't for free. Nowhere
Oh,
near.
no. It cost me a pretty penny. But, it's one of those, gotta have it. Gotta do it.
Gotta have it.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's get into it then. How about that? I'll tell you what I did in my 4th, but let's go with, what did you get? What did you do in the 4th?
Well, okay. Well, I guess we'll start with the big item because with conventions you get all kinds of you get a big old showroom that has a bunch of stores. You walk around and you shop. You look for items that you typically can't find anywhere else.
That's right.
And then they have celebrity appearances where you can actually go and get people's autographs if you really like them.
That's right.
And
These cons come in big sizes, little sizes, and the one that you
all
went to
shapes and sizes.
was big. Not quite San Diego.
Man. I mean, you're looking at about 20,000 people over the course of
That's
one
pretty
day.
big.
It was
a
a
lot
pretty
of,
big con, but
it's a lot of nerds in one spot.
the more normie nerds than just straight up nerds.
This is true.
A lot of normie things, but
What'd
the
you get?
big person that happened to be there was little old Annie himself, Mr.
Look
Hayden
at that.
Christensen.
Hayden Christensen.
I did get his autograph, and man, it was one hell of a journey to acquire said autograph. Because first I had to get in line, and I did make sure to get it authenticated as well.
Thank you.
But if there's one thing that I've learned in cons is that you do a lot of standing in line. So Saturday comes around. One, Mr. Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, was only going to be there for Saturday. So we had to first pre-purchase tickets prior to the con. Then I had to stand in line to get into the con. Then I had to stand in line to get into the showroom for the con. Then I had to stand in a third line to pick up my tickets to then get sent back downstairs away outside of the showroom to a separate queue where I stood in line for a premium pass and a regular pass, which I only had the regular pass, so all the premium people had to go in front of me. And then from there, stand in a hallway, mixed and matching said premium and, regular people together, and then had to stand in another series of lines, in the room where Hayden Christensen was doing his autograph. So, it's a lot of standing in line.
A lot of standing in line. All that for me.
To get a whiny little teenage brat's autograph.
What?
It was great. No, I loved it. I love Hayden Christensen, and I know he's such a meme and a joke at times, but I really do love the prequel films, and Hayden Christensen still is one of my heroes as Anakin Skywalker.
That's true.
Fundamentally. So this was a very, very special occasion for me because where we got the autographs from Mark Hamill, with Luke Skywalker being the person that you grew up with.
Very special for me.
Mm-hmm. Anakin was more specifically the person that I grew up watching, as Episode 1 came out in 1999, Episode 2 came out in 2002, and then Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, came out in 2005. So this was pretty much my childhood hero seeing grow up and fall. So it was great getting his autograph. But then right after that, I had to then go and stand in another line for another legendary creator.
More lines.
All time. More lines. So I had to stand in 2 more lines for that day. One, to get Mark Silvestri and then Jim Lee's autographs.
You got Jim Lee's too.
I did. I got them both, as you can see.
Did you
They
get Chris
both
Claremont
did
on
these.
that one too?
No,
You've
Chris
had
Claremont is not on this one. He is on Volume 1 of Uncanny X-Men, not
of
the
the other
X-Men
one.
Volume
Okay,
1.
that would
So
have been
this
cool.
was,
All three in one.
yeah, so this was an artist-centric one that I got signed since they were both there. And standing in line for Jim Lee, it was another 2 hours of waiting. So
So
it was fun. And then it was about 45 minutes of waiting for Mark Silvestri's, which I got to watch him work as I was waiting for the chance to actually have him sign my book. So that was cool. And then the last one that I got on Sunday, which I had to hurry because he was only doing a limited signing, was Andy Kubert, who did the artwork for the wedding of Cyclops in Phoenix, and he was kind of a quintessential 90s X-Men comic artist following on the heels of both Mark Silvestri and Jim Lee. So I had to get his autograph as well. So
I have his autograph on a card.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count because I didn't get it. So I got it in like a pack with a bunch of other people. Doesn't count.
And then with cons and looking for rare items and things that you're like, oh, I'll never buy that anywhere else. So, but there's one series called Full Metal Panic from Japan. This is one of my all-time favorite animes. It's one of my favorite light novels that I'm so happy they finally decided to translate and put into these nice little hardcovers. But finding merchandise for that particular franchise is very, very difficult considering that it's almost 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I just happened to stumble upon one booth that had an official licensed wall scroll. So
you got wall scrolls. More
I had to pick this
up.
up. I don't know where this is going to hang, but I went, you know what? I love this franchise, and I never get merchandise from this franchise, so I'm going to buy a wall scroll that's probably going to sit in my
I like the
closet for a
colors.
little bit.
The colors are very, very vibrant. I like it.
They are very, 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 very vibrant. I love them. And then the last thing that you do at the con, whenever you find that you have a little bit of money left, by a little bit of money, way more than you probably should have spent, you decide to peruse Artist Alley and proceed to buy art prints of various characters that only you are ever going to know, but you really like their style. And I've also bought some comic book related ones, but those are much larger than these ones, so I got to get them specially framed.
Wow. Well, I suppose
that was my 4th of July.
I was gonna say the last podcast we did, I got to show all the autographs I got, with James Arnold Taylor and Matt Lanter, and now you got me the Anakin or the Hayden Christensen. And I was gonna say all I got was this for Christmas. I got the latest Black Series Jesse to complete the ARC Trooper set, and then the latest one that I'm reading. But I missed Spider-Man 2099 Omnibus. I can't believe I missed that one. In the midst of Spider-Verse came out and everything else. But I did get Untold, finally, pick this one up. Untold Tales. So these are like little extra stories that were inserted into previous ones. So it's a cool little storyline. Not my favorite.
They're supposed to fit in between the first 39 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. So whenever Spider-Man was in high school.
Right.
The only time Spider-Man was in high school.
The actually only time, exactly. So it's a good read. I like because I've really enjoyed the first 6 volumes so far. Amazing, and reading all the different ones. The origin stories of so many. That's kind of cool stuff to me. Wow. Well, I didn't get to go to any cons, but I did get to go see my brothers, Uncle Matt and Uncle Larry, and of course, Aunt Stacy and Aunt Brenda were there, but mostly we got to get to see my brothers up in Ironwood, up into UP, way up there, up north.
I'm sure you guys got into all kinds of little bits of chaos.
All we did was just pretty much stay up late laughing and through out all of our voices, and the best part though,
a bunch of little giddy schoolgirls.
Pretty much all of our wives just kind of like, okay, I've had enough, I'm done with you. You guys just go giggle off on your own. So we got some great stories. The biggest thing was Uncle Matt. So he's just like, he does things a certain way. So he decided, we went through this whole tour through the city to go get pop and then sweet tea for Uncle Larry and McDonald's because he likes his a certain way. And then we forgot ice. So Uncle Matt was like, well, let's just stop at Walmart on the way home instead of going back to the gas station. We're like, okay. So he gets out of the car. So it's Uncle Larry and I in the front seat, and then Uncle Matt's oldest son is in the back. And he gets out, and we're like, oh, we'll just wait out here. And he proceeds to actually go into Walmart without us, left his phone in the car, and we went and just parked, hid on the other end of the parking lot, and just watched him. He comes out, he's holding his ginormous bag of ice. It's like 95 degrees. It's melting. We sat there and recorded him for like 5 minutes of him just like looking around, like, and you could tell like when he's getting like antsy. And he knows a lot of people in that town. We thought, and some guy pulled up in a truck, and I thought for sure he's getting a ride, and nope. And we finally picked him up, and I like honked the horn, and he slowly sees us, and he gets in the car, and he goes, "You jerks!" Just like that was the epitome of what we did with our 4th of July, was just have fun, make fun with Uncle Matt. Fun time with Uncle Matt.
Fun time.
That's right. It was always a good time. Well, welcome to our podcast with talking about geekdom profits. That, if you're feeling like you're geekdom, if you already feel like you've kind of tuned out because, oh, what are they talking about? Try to explain some of these things along the way. And, forgive us if we don't always stop, because sometimes, in our ignorance, we think, oh, everybody knows this. Like even what Curtis is talking about, going to conventions, and you've seen those on TV where they just, as he said, all these people will come, and sometimes they have celebrities. They have celebrity comic book artists. They have celebrity media artists that will come in. So that's why we like to try to get these autographs, get to meet people, get to meet some of the actors as well as some of the writers of some of our favorite storylines. But so last time we were able to discuss the father heroes. And I'm Curtis's father hero.
No, he's just my
right?
dad.
He's just, I tried. All right. And along with that, we talk about perspective. And do you remember the story we were talking about Anakin Skywalker versus Darth Vader? When you think of Anakin, like we have his autograph there, do you think of Anakin, or do you think of
the many expressions of Darth Vader?
The many expressions of Darth Vader, got the shirt on. And then, or you could go the 80s route and just go with Dark Helmet. Kind of looks like it, doesn't it?
Or Black Helmet Man.
Black Helmet Man. You can't breathe in this thing. Oh, Black Helmet. It's Black Helmet Man. No, I'm Dark Helmet. I can't breathe in this thing.
Good old space.
So sometimes we saw that it depends on which characteristic of the person, that we're talking about. Whether or not we think of Darth Vader, the evil side, or do we think of Anakin, the good guy, the guy that was trying to struggle with the good and evil. So we thought this would be a great topic kind of transfer into this whole idea of identity crisis. Sometimes you go through an identity crisis. Curtis, you ever gone through an identity crisis?
I'm sure at some point I have.
Or you will. You're going to go through your midlife crisis?
No. I'm going to control my midlife crisis. It's not going to be a crisis. It's going to be a controlled fall.
Just buy a nice car right now. And so you will control it.
No. That's what this is.
That's what all that is. Your midlife crisis. That's what you can start selling that stuff when it becomes your midlife crisis.
I can't own a fast car, otherwise I will be in prison within about 20 minutes.
That's right. Be like, what is it? Who was your favorite? Jeff Gordon and Mike Wallace. There was a commercial with them racing down the streets in their cars just to get to the store or something like that.
I don't remember these ads.
Yeah, that was way back when you were a kid.
I only remember the Danica Patrick GoDaddy ads.
Oh, that's right. No, it was Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon. Anyways, by the way, that's our little E, Dale Earnhardt Jr. So the identity crisis. So this idea that sometimes we go through an identity crisis. We go through the struggle trying to figure out who we are. There was an old 80s Christian song that was Margaret Becker, and Who am I? Jesus. Sorry. If Uncle Matt's watching this, he's laughing hysterically right now. So many of us wear masks to display a specific persona of who we are. So obviously, when we look at superheroes, we look at nerddom and the geekdom. We think of superheroes. A lot of them wear masks. And so, what is the purpose of masks? So we think of masks historically. We like to wear them at Halloween. Curtis wore a mask one time when you were a little boy. You came out in this. It looked like a Jason mask.
It was a Jason mask.
It wasn't an actual Jason mask,
yeah.
But you insisted you were a Bionicle.
I was.
What was the Bionicle's name?
What do you think? What the Bionicle's name was?
Well, it was the Island of Matanui. That's all I remember was Matanui.
No, yeah. The
Mask of Light.
For those that know what Bionicle is, I went as the original Ice Bionicle Kopaka.
Haka.
So
okay.
we had to craft that costume because this was back in the day whenever you didn't have all the fancy cosplay pre-built stuff anymore that you could.
That's right. And we
and it was crap.
Hey, it was great. That was an awesome costume.
Hey, for a 10-year no, I wasn't even 10 yet at the time. I was 8. For an 8-year-old building that by myself, it was great.
I was gonna say, and then Brooke was all dressed up as Trinity from the Matrix.
Well, that you just need leather and sunglasses and you're fine.
And she just greased her hair back. It was great. I loved it. Or so if you think of historically, a lot of people, different cultures use masks for different reasons. Mongolia, they would use it for power of healing. They'd put on different masks, and it was ritualistic. So it's even ritually, religious rituals have them for funerals. Egyptian history, we found the tomb of King Tutankhamun.
King Tut.
King Tut. King Tut.
Yeah. You know who was in that?
What?
Oh, I was just gonna go with the.
I feel a joke.
I was gonna go with the SNL skit with Steve Martin.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that one. Man, the golden oldies. So they actually found a golden mask in his sepulcher with him because they wanted to make sure that the gods and other people would recognize him when he went to the other life because his natural body would crumble and deteriorate. So
whenever he sailed down the river Styx.
Down the river Styx. Sometimes he used different faces to express different feelings, like Mardi Gras or costumes, Halloween costumes.
Hey, speaking of costumes, they use them in theater for the purpose of making sure that the people in the back understand the expressions that are supposed to be expressed on stage.
That's right. Over exaggerated. That's right. So they could see them. So yeah, you see that in entertainment. That this whole idea that we can pretend to be somebody else. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. Well,
sometimes
look at even
Hollywood. Sometimes it's Hollywood just not understanding about who they are.
That's true. They're struggling with it all. Well, you think
dance,
what about
clowns, dance?
Well, look at us individually. If we don't even go to Hollywood, go to us as individual people.
Oh man, it gets even worse.
Well, yeah, I mean the biggest mask I can think of is social media.
Well,
sorry.
It's not even social media. It's the front that we ourselves put up on social media to try to glorify our lives in some semblance or another to make myself feel better, feel far superior to those that are around me. Well, you don't want them to see the bad side of things. We just want them to see the proposed good outcome.
Right. Yeah. So not social media bad in itself, but what it causes people to do. Like you see the one picture on Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, and you see the one picture, but how many thousands of other pictures did that person have to take?
One for me because I'm weird.
Because you're weird that way?
Well, mostly because none exist. So.
We still love you that way.
Thank you.
See, that would mean that you don't put on a mask. Sometimes
it's just nobody even sees the mask. It's just in shadow. Like Batman.
Like Batman. All right. So we like to use masks for entertainment. But there's things that we're going to look at. Speaking of Batman, 3 different characters we're going to look at. Nice segue there. I wonder if you did that on purpose.
Maybe, just a little bit.
Well, there's 3 different characters that we're going to look at today on our podcast, specifically that dealt with a struggle with their personal identity. And we would say their identity crisis that they went through. And they covered these identity crises with the use of a mask. So the first one we're going to take a look at, and that, as Curtis said, is Batman.
Batman versus... All of his books are right there. There's a lot of them.
Oh, I was like, what are you waving your hand?
It's right there. All those...
They're back there behind
all
him.
Those books right there on those 2 shelves are all Batman.
I'm Batman.
Ah, Batman.
So Batman versus Bruce Wayne. So who's the real persona?
Who? Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Is this
sure?
Are we getting into this? Batman.
Oh well,
Batman
if you want to get into
the
it,
actual persona.
Batman's the because he even says, "I'm Batman."
Yeah.
He doesn't go, "I'm Bruce Wayne." It
says,
"I'm Batman."
Batman.
Well, I like it because when you read the comics, Batman is like he's all over the place. Even the title of the comic books or his titles are Batman,
Detective Comics, The Dark
Knight.
You have Legends of the Dark Knight. Caped
Crusader,
Confidential. I mean, just going off of the titles of just Batman from the comics, not even like the what people refer to him as within the book, because you get into the book, yeah. He's referred to as the world's greatest detective. He's referred to as the Caped Crusader, the Dark Knight, Batman, the greatest fighter of all. Like, he's got all of these different personas of what the world actually views him as, and then even with the titles of the comics themselves, you have one character that the only other person that could probably rival him is Spider-Man. Batman has on any given day you have Batman, Detective Comics, so those are your 2 main titles that run, and then there's usually 3 or 4 other titles that are just titled Batman then something else, so like Legends of the Dark Knight, as I said earlier, where it's Batman in different scenarios. It's Batman dealing with different cases. Some are Batman's past, some are Batman today. Some of those stories aren't even necessarily Bruce Wayne Batman. It's a different person saying, I am Batman.
I am Batman, the persona of Batman. Well, if you look at the difference between the 2, that's what I want to take a look at with this identity crisis. When he thinks you look at Batman, he's all black. Some people, the artists, and then they write Bruce Wayne is more of all gray. He's the philanthropist versus the crime fighter.
I have issues speaking the area.
Yeah. He's the wealth and the influence versus fear and retribution. So it's like different aspects of the same person and what they're trying to display. And there'd be an argument between many different people of who's the real one. Is it really Batman or is it Bruce Wayne? Deep down, what is the reason? Why does Bruce Wayne wear the mask? Why does he wear the Batman? Is he doing this because he's living with guilt? Is he arguing with himself? I would say that he outwardly or deep down doesn't think that he's a good person. So that he's a selfish person as Bruce Wayne. He's giving money, he's doing all these things specifically to put up a good front, a good image. And so the Batman part of him is he's trying to be balanced, that give himself balance. I think that's the purpose of masks. A lot of times people use it for balance. What do you?
Go ahead. Whenever it comes to Batman, that understanding that he's this broken character that kind of beats himself up, so he looking for that retribution. That's, I would say, more of a Hollywood thing. That's Batman in his early days. That's Batman himself trying to distinguish who Batman is going to become. Batman in his prime knows what he needs to do. He knows that there are aspects that he needs to fight in the light as Bruce Wayne, and he knows that there are aspects that can only be defeated in the dark because of the corrupt, you know, um, uh, judicial system, and how all of these terrible criminals keep ending up back out on the streets because of how corrupt Gotham City as a character actually is. Is Bruce Wayne a separate entity from Batman? Yeah, they are. They are very separate. Bruce Wayne later on becomes this aspect of, yeah, he's the billionaire playboy philanthropist, as, you know, Tony Stark would call himself, but he does it with an idea that everything that he's doing is for selfish reasons, when in reality it's more to support his actual character of Batman. See, he takes on different companies, he buys out different companies because of the fact that he's looking for particular types of evidence. It may bring him more money, but in reality what he's actually looking for is that last little shred of evidence that he needs to go after somebody to beat the ever living crap out of them to get him out of the city, because there's no other way. So it's a twofold with Bruce Wayne and Batman. But I think at the end of the day, everything that Batman, the character, does as Bruce Wayne, the actual, what I would call his mask that he presents to the world, he does in support of Batman's efforts, not Bruce Wayne's.
Well, yeah, because you could even state the argument that Batman would not exist without Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne could exist without Batman. Bruce Wayne is just who he is, la da 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 da. But because of the pain and the agony he went through with losing his parents, that's what caused, or that's what brought about the reason for his necessity, this need to create the Batman. That Batman was, outside of that, Batman has no identity. That would be his identity crisis. He has no reason or justification for all the things he's doing, unless he has, if you go back to the reasons he's doing this, is because of what happened to him as Bruce Wayne. So that's like the reason for his identity crisis. The reason it gives him a justification for who he is, a purpose for his identity. If you want to look at it in that regard.
You can look at the couple of panels that you sent me prior to this of Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman are all standing around and they're trying to trust and understand each other, and they all grip the lasso of truth to reveal who they are. And where Wonder Woman says Diana Prince, you know, Princess of the Amazons, and Superman says Clark Kent, Kal-El, Batman truthfully, honestly believes himself to be Batman because he refers to himself as Batman.
As Batman. He doesn't even say Bruce Wayne. Yeah, yeah, that one throws in like a whole wrench into, wow, just the he truly believes he's Batman. He's conformed or become Batman. And Bruce, like you said, Bruce Wayne is more the mask than the Batman is the mask. Oh, you know, yeah. And I think of that. You think of that even with people you come across. You know, the guy who is the perfect person at work, and he's just doing all the great things, and then you get him outside, and he's cussing out everybody that walks across his footsteps. You know, that type of person is like, whoa, and all of a sudden you're completely turned off. You know, I remember, you know, when you're dating somebody and you go on a date and they're like super nice, like all attentive to you, and all of a sudden the waitress comes up and they like make no eye contact with the waitress. They treat them like they're a non-person. And it's like, okay, what is this persona that you put up? This I would call it a mask of this hypocrisy of, who are you really? Are you the person who won't make eye contact with the waitress? Or are you this person that's trying to be really nice and trying to get on other people's good side? You know, that's where I think of like the difference comes in with like Bruce Wayne and versus Batman. Is like, you know, what is the front that you're trying to put out towards other people even? Yeah. There's that struggle. Well, you kind of mentioned
the struggle even comes down to, who do you view yourself as?
Exactly.
And we'll get into that some more here within these next couple of characters.
Well,
Let's move on.
That's exactly right.
To character number 2.
Character number 2, because we're dealing with identity crisis, that very issue. So Spider-Man versus Batman. So you got Batman, who basically wears this mask to cover up who he is, that he's actually Bruce Wayne, and he goes out and wears this mask and so he can fight justice or fight injustice. But Peter Parker versus Spider-Man, there might be a different reason. If you look at Peter Parker versus Spider-Man, he actually struggles to live two distinct different lives. Batman and Bruce Wayne seems like he's constantly struggling with, am I this person? Am I this person? Peter Parker is Peter Parker, and Spider-Man is Spider-Man. And
Miles
you see
Morales
in the comics,
is Miles Morales.
That's right. To know Lloyd Dobler is to love Lloyd Dobler. That's right. That is the difference that you see with this type of mask, or this superhero that he puts on, this persona, that he is distinctly two different people. If you look at, people say, well, why does he wear the mask? Is it because of guilt? Is it because of shame? That we may wear masks for different reasons. I would warrant to say that Spider-Man wears a mask because he does it to protect people. He'd protect his secret identity.
I would say he does it to protect people and because he's terrified.
Means because he's terrified. Oh, that's a good point, too.
He's terrified. He doesn't want his villains to see his fear, so he wears the mask also because, yes, he's trying to protect his own identity and keep his life separate, but it's also because it gives him courage to create this character of Spider-Man. It gives him that extra little oomph to go out there and throw one last punch, and it's also the reason why he won't stop with the quips.
That's true. He's very quippy. I mean, that's the difference between the two. You see him, one's a wisecracker, and the other one's the smart, reserved, shy introvert, and the other one's
meek.
A geek. Yeah, and Spider-Man's more the
meek.
Oh, that's right. And Spider-Man's more, in your face, throwing jokes at you. He's cocky. He's not a wimp. It's like he can finally live out who he feels he can be. But at the same time, when he's Peter Parker, he's very conscientious of, hey, my strength is really pretty strong, so I have to hold back. Because he wants it to be distinct between Peter Parker versus who Spider-Man is. I mean, if you look at even, because we actually got to see that with Spider-Man in the Civil War issues. The original.
Oh, yeah. The original Civil War comic.
Yeah, the Civil War comic. Peter Parker or Spider-Man actually reveals he is Peter Parker, reveals his secret identity.
And his then whole life collapses.
His whole life, everything just goes upside down, and then that's why he seeks out Doctor Strange to make the spell. Totally different again with the MCU.
Not Doctor Strange at that point. It's
it was Madam Web in the comics.
It was Doctor Strange to get people to forget, including Mary Jane. Mary Jane still kind of remembers things, and so they end up going to Mephisto, who is the living embodiment of Satan.
That's right. Yeah, totally. It's a little different. They hadn't brought that character in yet in MCU, but you can.
Well, they kind of hinted at him in WandaVision, and then they didn't do anything with it.
That's true. I thought that's where they were going to go with it, so that they could justify him in the new Spider-Man movie.
Jack Schaefer didn't even know who that character was, so
that's true. All right, sorry, people. We digress. We go off in the different worlds here. Well, if you look at Peter Parker, and going into our third character too here, but Batman has his own comic line. Spider-Man has his own comic line. Iron Man has his own comic line. Peter Parker is the only one of the three that has his own comic line. There's no Bruce Wayne comic line. There's no Tony Stark comic line. There's a Tony Stark Iron Man and the Invincible Iron Man, but Peter Parker is the only one that actually has his own distinct, separate comic line. And I think that strives from the importance of him trying to be two separate people. Does he do it successfully all the time? And is it healthy? Is that healthy for us as individuals?
If you want to look at if it's healthy or not, how many relationships has Peter Parker been in that have completely and utterly collapsed because of the fact that he has two identities that he won't bring together into one to then share with his partner? It wasn't until he finally did it with Mary Jane that he went, okay, I can open up and be with this person because she's not going to stab me in the back.
Right. Yeah. Spoiler alert for those, he went through Liz and Betty Bryant and Gwen Stacy, all these, and Gloria even, there was a partial little like there with the neighbor, all these different other women in his life. And like you said, his life was this constant struggle between the two. But when he actually finally let his guard down to let them collide together, in the comics at least, it seemed like it was the first time that Peter seemed happy.
And then we got
Content.
20 years of great storytelling, and then Joe Quesada decided to say, nah, he can't be married anymore because I'm not. I know, that's
Yeah,
a little bit of a deep cut, but
that's all right. And JMS was like, I'm out. All right, yeah,
yep.
that's we'll talk about the clones of Spider-Man and all that later, but that's where I thought it was interesting that the difference between the two is when he finally starts meshing them together is when he finally seemed somewhat content. And
Oh yeah.
again,
Well, and it's not even that he felt content at that point. It's that they got to explore other issues within the comics outside of him just being split in personality. He now has to explore the idea of being home with Mary Jane and her having heart attacks every time that he goes out, whether she knows if he's going to come back or not. If he's going to wind up in a ditch and she's going to find out that he died via a news broadcast from the Daily Bugle. All that kind of stuff really lended into the strain of their relationship, but it also allowed them to explore those different aspects of what it would mean whenever your identities collide into one, and the issues that you've been trying to avoid all of that time by keeping them separate. Well, now you have an entirely different can of worms that you're going to have to answer.
right. And I like it because it doesn't necessarily say that all masks are bad, that sometimes we need to have them, like you said, for protection.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you took that even into modern day, the same thing that happened, that's what I liked how they wrote that a lot of the stories were very similar to like policemen today or firemen, and their spouses sitting at home dreading every day for that phone call, because when they come home, they're just dad or they're just mom or you know what I mean? That it's
You're
just
just Peter Parker.
yeah, you're just every day. But then when you leave, you have to put on that badge, you have to put on that helmet, and you are that other person. You become the police officer. You become, does that always go away when you're home? No, but I think it's more or less the other persona becomes more personified. How's that? Becomes more distinguished.
You're just as bad as Google's definition definers.
Definitions here. What's the definition of a hypocrite? One who deals with hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy.
Whatever. Loser, stupid. All right. So then we just kind of mentioned briefly of Tony Stark then. Tony Stark versus Iron Man. Now here, the contrast of him wearing his masks and the reason why, then it comes to the point where it's distinctly different. He comes straight out in the movies and in the comics eventually. There's several years. Yeah. But in the movie, he comes out at the end of that and says, I am Iron Man. And that's what I didn't realize that. Did you know that was actually improv, that scene?
Yep.
I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yep, it was improv. It's a similar situation with Han Solo being sick and improving the gunfire with the dude with the scimitar that they're in the market, and he's all like doing all the tricks and stuff. He was supposed to do a sword fight. He's just like, I'm tired with the day, and he shoots him instead. And they decided to keep it.
You
It's a
realize
similar
you said
situation.
you realize you said Han Solo, right?
Han Solo, Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, Han
It's
Solo.
Harrison Ford.
He's the same thing. There's a whole identity crisis right there, man.
Harrison Ford has an identity crisis.
I think so. He's like, let's kill off every character I've made great and important. Anyways, so
Darker.
when you look at Iron Man versus Tony Stark, there's not a versus. He is both of those people at all times. He's always Tony Stark, and he's always Iron Man. Even to the point that he makes, again, we're going to go nerd talk here. He makes the Extremis, this outfit the Iron Man outfit literally comes out of his tissue.
The Extremis is the actual like nervous system of the Iron Man suit comes out, and then the plate forms around it. The one that you're thinking of, where it totally bleeds out of his skin, that's the bleeding edge armor.
The bleeding edge armor. Oh,
yep.
Yes. Different levels of it. But that's where he literally does everything he can to become Iron Man. That he is one and the same. Like I said, it may be a mask so that people go, oh, look out, he's going to start shooting things, or something could happen. But at the same time, when you see him walk into the room, you're like, okay, that's Tony Stark. Oh, that's Iron Man. It's the same person. Or,
you don't know whenever he's gonna fuck shit up.
yeah, he's going to mess it up. Yeah, in the comics, like I said, it took several years for them to go through it.
Well, and
But
that is what we like to call character development. So where
yes.
Tony Stark, where Spider-Man, up until the point where they ripped Mary Jane away from him, was going through that arc himself of accepting himself as both Spider-Man and Peter Parker, that they are one and the same, and he has a place where he can express both of those identities in a single area. And then you have Batman, who hasn't even decided to go through it, because all that he wants to do is live this persona of this character that he's created, or more developed into, and utilizing that as his actual person, and then Bruce Wayne as his vehicle to get what Batman needs done. Not that he is Bruce Wayne, he's very much Batman. He just says, hey, Bruce Wayne, this person, this billionaire playboy that everybody's going to look at and say, yeah, he ain't progressing in life because he's a rich person. He's a rich kid that inherited all of this money. He utilizes that identity entirely separate for the purpose of raising Batman up. They're not going to be the same. They're never going to be the same person whatsoever. So you can see how these arcs have developed. Iron Man went through this with keeping all of his internal anxiety within him and trying to separate the two characters. You get a little story called Demon in the Bottle, which is fantastic. If you're really wanting to get into Iron Man stories, start there. I have it up there on my shelf in an omnibus, but it is by David Michelinie and John Romita Jr. and Bob Layton. Find the story. It's usually always kept in publication in some way, shape, or form. But within that, what ends up happening is part of whenever he has these identities separated from each other and trying to keep them separate, he becomes a raving drunk and ends up hurting all of the people around him because of that fact. Hence the title, Demon in a Bottle. And so it's been a significant struggle for him from the 1980s up into where he finally decided to accept his identity as both Iron Man and Tony Stark in about the mid-2000s. That's a 25-year arc for this guy to go through to fully accept all of his demons for what they are and say, yep, I am this person through and through. I fully accept it, and I fully accept the consequences that are going to come from it.
Well, and that brings us into, if you look at the parabolic reaction. I'm going to pull out a quote here. When John Cusack played the character Charles Schwartz, he said, "Do you know what a metaphysical can of worms this portal is?" From being John Malkovich.
It's a
this
lot.
Whole idea that we can really get into this whole strange concept of, what does the Bible say? What does it say about what masks do we wear as people? I would say we wear them every day. The struggle, like you said, even if you look at Batman, there was actual same thing. There was a similar arc with the JSA called, I believe it was Divided We Fall, where it actually splits the personalities of Bruce Wayne and Batman. Same type of thing where they're just butting up against each other. But you realize, again, at that point, you couldn't have a Batman without Bruce Wayne. And specifically, without the pain that Bruce Wayne went through. So when we look at people wearing masks, I don't always want to say, hey, look, this is a negative thing, but that sometimes the masks are there for protection to get you through to a point where eventually, hopefully, you can become going from the Batman stage to Spider-Man, where you're like, okay, I'm comfortable with both of these. But then eventually that you become like Iron Man, comfortable with, I am both of these things at once. And it's no longer to you a mask. It's a perspective of how somebody may look at you. For instance, at one point still am father, son, husband, brother. I'm all of those things. I wear different masks. None of those are bad. None of those different masks are bad, but I act differently when I'm with you. I mean, not necessarily act differently, but how I respond to you is differently than I would with my brothers. Does that make sense? It's
Oh,
not that
it's
I'm.
the same on my side. I mean, I
Mhm,
respond very differently with the different groups of people that I'm around, that I am around on a regular basis. And it's those
mhm,
that I feel more comfortable with, I will express who I actually am more around them
mhm.
than I am with people that I don't know. I get a little
Yeah,
bit more vulgar whenever I'm around my friends. I get a little bit more crass and sarcastic. It's who I am in reality, but I do know that there is a mask that I have to put up around other people so I don't scare them off thinking
there you go.
this person is absolutely terrible for the things that he says without understanding my own context for the comments that I make.
Right. So it's not even necessarily protecting yourself, it's protecting
It can be
them.
protecting others.
Yeah. Protecting others, protecting yourself. I think of like, what the Bible says in Genesis 38:15. It says, when Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for her head covered her face. That's kind of more cultural. I don't necessarily think that's what the Bible's talking about with wearing masks, but it does say in 2 Corinthians 3:18, we all who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory. Unveiled faces, so not wearing a mask, are being transformed into his image with ever increasing glory. This whole idea that we can come to the Lord, come to Christ with an openness, taking down the mask, taking down the veil, and saying, here I am, for better, for worse, for, the Batman side and the Bruce Wayne side. Here I am, both parts of me. Take all of it. And it says specifically, the Bible doesn't necessarily talk about wearing masks, but it does give us the comprehension of understanding, what is the type of person. Uh, are you a hypocrite? Do you portray one thing and say one thing and actually live a different way? Someone who acts out one way in front of others, they're putting on a front. In Matthew 6:2, it says, thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. So the root word of hypocrite actually has a similar root word of actor, the one who is pretending, person who puts on a false appearance of virtue or religion. Or another definition, person who acts in contradiction to his or her stated beliefs or feelings. And I think many times when we think of masks, we think of the negativity. We think of, having been a pastor before, we have this joking thing. We love to see the CEOs of Christianity come into the church, the the
Christmas,
CEOs and every.
Christmas, Easter only.
That's right, the Christmas Easter only crowd. Oh, I'm a Christian. I love the Lord. I'm gonna show up twice, do my due diligence, show up twice a year. And do you have to go to church just to prove that you're Christian? No. But again, if you're putting on this front for that particular reason, it defeats the purpose of what you're trying to become. Are you trying to become Tony Stark and Iron Man all in one person, the same person, that you have balance in your life? Because I've noticed a lot of the people who are wearing lots of different masks, or even people who have several different jobs, it's a struggle to put this mask on. Okay, I got to work. I got to work at the hospital today, or today I'm going to be working at Meyer, or today I'm going to be working at Taco Bell. It's different masks that they have to put on, and that takes a toll on you as an individual. And that's just a physical mask, a true physical mask of putting on different personas of who you are in the workplace. But when you have to start putting on different personas of who you are personally, that takes a true toll and a struggle and a strain on your emotions. We look at the world and we look at the influx of suicide rates and the amount of people. I haven't even looked at the studies recently of those that are on, all the different anxiety types of medications, because people are just so lost with this internal struggle of who am I? This struggle of trying to find out my identity. That is a true identity crisis, and it is excuse the terminology, pandemic in this crazy world of ours, that we have this persona that we have to be this certain person, or social media puts out a certain social influencers say, oh, we got to do this, we have to be this, and then everybody else on TikTok wants to copy them. It's like, it's the idea of be yourself and be who you can be, but at the same time, I think what the word encourages us to be is to be better. As much as anybody that talks with me, I hate that phrase, you do you. What if you is a serial killer? No, don't do you.
I hate that phrase. That phrase is awful. Phrase needs
be
to burn.
Better. Be better than you.
You doing you is you being a shit person and going, well, it's just me.
I suck. I want to be different. That's the whole point. Is that, we want to change. We want to make a difference. James 3:10 says, my brothers, these things ought not to be this way.
I love that verse.
There's times to make a change. Let your yeas be yeas and your nays be nays. And what was the one that you said?
If not, he will spit you out like lukewarm water.
Yeah, don't be lukewarm. And I think that's the encouragement for all of us today, whether you're a Christian or not, that there's an encouragement here of just, yes, not trying to always put up that front, always put up that mask. Find those people in your life that you can be honest and true with, that you can grow with, that you can be encouragement. Again, I understand that sometimes we have to put on masks. I'm not saying take all your masks down and show all your crap to everybody, because, that's sickening and you're going to chase everybody away. Peter Parker kept the difference so that it was for the protection of other people. So sometimes you have to wear those masks to protect other people. And sometimes as Bruce Wayne, you have to wear them to protect yourself as Batman. And so there is a time and a place for those things, for those masks. But again, the encouragement here is understanding these things ought not to be this way. You need to find somebody. You need to find that person in your life that you can say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me? And again, I've counseled with people, and I've talked to so many people that struggle with this true identity crisis, and it's real. And I love how comic books display these things and show the personas. And again, for those who aren't necessarily familiar with all the comic parts and the nerd talk, that this is talking more about understanding the crisis that we go through, and it plays a part in our lives. So sometimes you got to remember, perspective is your prison or your passport. All right. Well, hey, Curtis, it's been a blast talking with you, as always. Peace out.
Peace!
Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Make your comments. Who's your favorite superhero? And who's your favorite secret identity? What? That could be a difference.
Peter Parker.
Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner?
He's not like mine.
Yeah,
you're the Hulk reader. But anyways, we'll catch you guys next time. Have a good evening.
Keeping it real.
What? Bye.
Thanks, Curtis. That was beautiful. I think you got something in your teeth. You got something in your teeth? Oh, it's more teeth.